Hey everybody, this is Andrew, CEO of Pesty Marketing. Welcome to the Pesty Marketing Podcast. My guest today is Cody Smith. Cody is a seasoned pest control professional who grew up in the industry, learning the business firsthand from his dad. He ran a one-man pest control operation. As a teenager, Cody helped his dad with the business, eventually taking over his route after college, which allowed his father to retire. Over time, Cody scaled and expanded the business through door-to-door sales and by focusing on customer relationships and operational efficiency. Cody is also the co-founder of Smarter Launch, a software platform designed to help pest control companies improve sales proposals and client conversion rates. Smarter Launch has been instrumental in helping pest businesses close deals faster by providing streamlined, customizable proposals that resonate with customers. And today, Cody shares lessons on scaling a pest control business, boosting sales, and avoiding common mistakes. So let's dive in. Cody, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for making the time to share your unique insights today as both an operator, someone who has scaled a pest control business successfully, as well as someone who saw a problem in the industry, a problem in the business, and then has gone and built really great software to solve that problem. So I want to start with the early days. Specifically, I want to know, what was the most important lesson you learned from working with your dad's business?
Thinking back, working with my dad, one, it was great. I always tell people it was like the best father-son opportunity, right? To be able to work with your dad. And what was nice is he actually, and maybe this is one of those things that I learned from him that impacted me, is he must have saw something in me and gave me quite a bit of leeway to kind of take over and run the business. And so very shortly after I got involved, I kind of took over and ran the business, and he let me kind of do my thing. And so it was great because he enjoyed servicing customers and wanted to do that. And so I said, hey, go do that and I'll manage everything else and grow, the way we want to grow. And so it was the best of both worlds, where we got to see each other every day as a family business. I was able to make a lot of decisions and kind of move forward with the business without having to butt heads as much. Now, in any family business, you're going to butt heads. And so we did have those. But I would say another thing that I learned is in a family business especially, is we could have a knockdown, drag out conversation about something in the business. And then, 5 minutes later, we're talking about a sports game or whatever else. And so he was one that he didn't hold grudges. He didn't hold any issues. We'd talk it out, we would express our opinions, and then we'd move on.
Interesting. Yeah, it's funny. Running a family business can go one of two ways, right? And it can go
totally
really well, or it can go really wrong. And I feel like most of the time when I hear about it, it goes really wrong. So you guys obviously had figured something out where it worked. You didn't take things personally. You kind of knew that business was business, and you could still go home and love each other and talk sports afterwards.
Yeah. And it was interesting. One of the things that I think pushed me, he had some really good friends in the industry that he relied on and worked through. And I had the opportunity early on to get involved with the associations. And so, being in Arizona, we had an Arizona association there for pest control, and I was able to get involved there. And I think the fact that I got involved and got to rub shoulders with a lot of different pest control companies, not only at the state level, but then nationally at the national level, that was huge, because you're able to, rub shoulders with amazing companies out there and learn, that from their mistakes, learn, things that you could be doing better. And this industry is so great about sharing information. And so that was key, to, any success that I would have in pest control, was to be able to learn from some of those people.
That's a great segue into my next question, which is, how did you scale your dad's business after you took over?
It was hard at first. I mean, there's scaling pest control, especially in the Arizona market, where there's, over 1,350, companies here, and they're all within one county. It's not like it's spread out across Arizona. It's all based in Phoenix. And so it's competitive. It's really hard out there. One thing I did in that timing was I did it through acquisition. So I found, really small, half routes, quarter routes from people, and I was able to go in and buy them, grow that way. And so that was really nice to be able to, every couple of years find somebody that was, looking to sell and be able to go in and like pick up a half a route or whatever. I didn't do it on the scale that they're doing it now, as far as these, big companies that have come in and private equity that's come into the market and doing that. But on a much smaller scale, it was great for us to be able to continue to scale that way. So really, acquisition was probably the major, contributor to us in our growth.
Do you think that purchasing those kinds of quarter routes, half routes, single routes is still something that is applicable to operators or companies that want to grow today?
Yeah, definitely. I think you get to a certain size, you're looking for a bigger multiple now, just with the industry and where it's going and the amount of money that's coming into our industry. But there's definitely those guys that have been out there, I would say I don't know what the statistics are, but I would guess that our average, with all the baby boomers, there's a lot of companies out there that are in their 50s and 60s that have been running a one-man or one or two-man show for a long time and, could be to that point of retirement. And so they're not big enough to maybe catch the eyes of these private equity firms and things like that. And so, that would be a great opportunity for them, to sell to some of these other companies that are looking to grow. So yeah, I think it's definitely a viable opportunity.
Can you give me your top three tips on those kinds of acquisitions for operators?
Yeah. So I would say for us, the biggest or the most important thing was that our services were alike. So we wanted to make sure that we were aligned as far as what our services. So the easier the streamline was to incorporate a company and mix it in with what we already have, the easier it was. And so making sure that the service was similar. Was it, if they were every other month services or quarterly services were the same, and then pricing was similar, so that you don't have to do any price increases or make any major changes in the first little while. So definitely those kinds of things. The way you serviced them, were they servicing with backpacks, were they servicing out of trucks? There were some deals that I didn't do just because it was going to be, in my mind, too much work to have to really figure all that out. So the more similar the company was to what we were, the easier it was, for that acquisition and for the, process of acclimating everyone together. Two, I would say just making sure that, there are people, if you were bringing on any people, that you had good people. There was one transaction I made. It was like a half a route, and I picked up a technician from that, and he maintained, being a technician for me for 15 years. So it was phenomenal. He was a great technician, super loyal guy, would do anything for you, would spray anything for you. He would do, 25 a day if he was told to. It was just one of those things. So I was able to pick up, some great people in the process. And then maybe another one would be just, making sure as far as the agreement, is a win-win in this situation. So, you're not necessarily taking advantage of anyone, but at the same time, because that whoever you purchase from, they're the CEO of that company, right? They're the face of that company. And so you want to be able to work together, especially in the beginning stages, to be able to, write a letter and explain what's happening, and that, it's more of a partnership in the sense of, for that first little while, so that his customers or the company's customers feel, at home and know that they're in good hands. So making sure that there's a win-win situation there.
You take over the family business, you are scaling through these small acquisitions. At what point did you realize that you needed to go build Smarter Launch?
So I'll be honest, I was actually not a part of the initial build out of Smarter Launch. So there's 4 partners here, 4 founders. The idea came from one of my partners, Eric, who brought in the idea of, helping the industry, putting some forms together and some different things. And so he had already spent about a year processing kind of what he was going to do. At that point, he got together with my other partner, Darren Hunsaker, who's also a PCO in the industry. And Darren said, hey, we need a developer, and had a good friend that was a developer, Nick, who they brought in as well. And they kind of morphed that forms and helping companies into what Smarter Launch is today. I actually came in on the tail end of the development to where I saw it. We were talking. Another great thing about the association is we had all, served together on the board in the association. And so we got talking about some things, and we were at a conference, and I saw it and what it had become that point, and said, this is awesome. Like, I think this is great. And I had spent a week with them kind of interacting and things like that. And so at the end of the week, they brought me in and said, hey, we really, need kind of what you have. And so I came in on it. We continued to build it out for another few months before we went live and started selling it. But the main thing was that we wanted to help companies. There's I guess a block in the sense of having something. Most 80% of the industry was still on paper and pencil, drawing out graphs, using stencils and quarters for bay windows, and all kinds of goofy stuff. And so we really felt like, hey, we want to take this industry to a different level. There's technology now, there's so many cool things out there, and we need to elevate the industry as a whole. And so we felt like, hey, there's a better way to create a proposal that gives the customer photos and videos and graphs and all the things that they need to be able to make the right decision. And it can be done quickly and sent over in a professional manner that makes a really good presentation. And really, that's what we built. It's a standalone proposal software that you can use with, any other management tool as far as your customer routing and scheduling. But it's going to help you save time on your proposal, that you can put something together really quickly. It's going to give you a ton of information and the customer all the information they need so they can make the right decision. And it's going to help companies close a lot more deals.
And what would you say are the key components of a winning sales proposal?
So I think today it's different, right? People are busy. People don't have time to read a bunch of stuff. They don't want to get lost in the details. And so to me, there's a few key components to a proposal. One, you want to personalize it. If you can show them a picture of their house or a picture of their situation and issues, they can visually see it right away. So you want to personalize it. You also want to give them, information. So whether that's on a graph where you can show them what you're going to do, you can, associate pictures with areas in their house where you took those pictures so they can, understand, oh, this was in the attic, and places maybe they've never gone. And so now all of a sudden they have a picture that shows them those kinds of things. So you want to give them details of what's there. And then I think the presentation as a whole, we always say our proposals are easy on the eyes because, so many people, they get these forms and things that they can't decipher. They don't know, like, what does this mean? Is my house going to fall down or what? And so we've made it really nice and easy on the eyes to where it's very pleasant to walk through, and exactly where you're at and what part of the proposal, is telling you what. And so I think the presentation being very professional. And then the last one I would say is the video piece that we make. We have a video piece that we've integrated with a Loom video where you can do a video in our proposal that explains the whole sales pitch. So you can do the whole sales pitch, explain your features and benefits, the value that you bring as a company in a video, and it uploads with the proposal and sends it over. So now someone can just click on that and watch a video sales pitch of the whole presentation. And so not always can you sell right there on the door with someone. That's obviously the best time to sell, but it doesn't always happen. And so if you can throw a video together real quickly and explain it all, walk it through it with them, that's going to give them all the information they need, and then they're going to feel comfortable.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm hearing a lot of personalization throughout, right? You kind of started and ended with personalization, that video. And the kind of like the human aspect, right? I mean, that's ultimately what the point of personalization is to make technology more human. And then finishing with video, of course, is right. Like, I mean, that's putting your best foot forward in terms of the sales process, and then making sure the presentation is presentable also makes a lot of sense, especially considering the industry we're in, right? It's right. Like,
and you're building a relationship, right? You're building a relationship with this person, and the more they feel like that you're not just a number, you're not just someone else that we're trying to, take their money from. When you build that relationship, they feel comfortable. There's a sense of peace there, right? And so they feel like, hey, we're comfortable going with this company. Give you an example. We just had a situation where I had a guy call and want to do a demo, and I asked him why. And he said, I just lost a $10,000 job because of you guys. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. He said, I put in a bid for this job and we didn't get it. So I called the company to find out why we didn't get it. And he said, they told me that they went with someone else. And I said, well, how was my pricing? And they said, oh, you were actually, better priced. But this company had such a great presentation that we felt more comfortable with them and felt like they were gonna, do a more professional job. And so we went with them. And so he found out who the company was, called them and asked them what they were using. And they said Smarter Launch. And so he looked us up and said, I can't afford to lose another $10,000 job like that. Sign me up. So it was a really cool, testimonial that shows exactly what we're doing. We're giving you the ability to create a really professional proposal that's going to create that sense of feeling that, hey, these guys are going to take care of us and they're going to do a good job. And you can even charge more for it.
Yeah, it's amazing how important perception of your brand is. And that of course extends into many different areas, but certainly it starts with the sale. How do you show up? Do you show up like a professional? Do you show up on time? Do you, from the get-go, do what you said you were going to do by when you said you were going to do it? And when you send over that proposal, does it look like an amateur or does it look like a professional? And there's a big difference between the two. And you can imagine, you got that story from that person who converted into a client, and imagine the hundreds, right, or thousands of times that Smarter Launch, or just a professional presentation is winning business where the other person or competitors are losing because what they're presenting feels amateur next to it.
Yeah, and even to take it to another level, and something we don't talk about in the industry a lot is there's a lot of agreements out there that are unsigned agreements, liability wise. Like there's just a lot of stuff out there. And so our proposal piece gives you the ability to have a signed agreement, with a customer. It's going to elevate the industry as a whole, just as far as liability and making sure that we're covered, because we live in a litigious world, right? That's, more and more people are looking for problems. And so this is going to cover your backside as well. And so we don't even talk about that very often, but that's something that, one of my partners, Eric, is very, passionate about, is making sure that we're helping companies cover themselves and make sure that they're taken care of so that somebody doesn't, come after them, that they have, all the paperwork and everything that they need and those signed agreements.
So what the story you just shared with me, I would consider a sales mistake on that individual's part. Right before they came to Smarter Launch, the sales mistake was presenting a proposal that was subpar compared to what their competitors were presenting.
Right.
What other common sales process mistakes do you see in pest control businesses? I'm going a little bit broader, and so it could be related to the proposal, but also broader.
I mean, I think you talked to it. I think a lot of it is, did you show up on time? Are you courteous to the customer and understanding their needs, that, they're waiting around for you? Are you giving them timed blocks that they have to sit around and wait like a plumber or something, versus, hey, I'll be here at this time and you're there at that time? So I think it's just, the common courtesies that we give. There's a lot of companies out there that kind of show up when they want and kind of whip it together real fast as far as, writing it out on a piece of paper. And they feel like that's fine. Like I close all my deals. And that's true when you're a smaller company within your network, right? Like you're typically giving bids out to people, referrals from your friends. And so, you get to a size where that doesn't work anymore. Like once you get outside of your network, that's going to get you to a certain size company. But once you get outside of that, now you have to either bring in leads, right? Pay a company to bring you leads, or do some other things that are going to bring more work, in, because your network is only so big. And so I think that's when you have to, up your game. You have to change what you're doing, and you have to start being more respectful to the customer, because they don't know you from any other company out there. You're one of 3 that's coming out. And so that's when you need to, take your professionalism to another level and give the customer, the information that they need. One of the things we have in our proposals, we integrate with Google. So we bring in all the 4 and 5-star reviews from Google. So they're right in the proposal. They show up right there. They automatically populate. So that way, now the customer doesn't have to go somewhere else and search that. They can find it right there in the proposal. So we're taking, work away from the the customer to have to do more research on their own. So the more we can put it right in their face and make them feel comfortable about everything that's in there, it's going to help them to be able to make a decision without having to go elsewhere or look at different things and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I think a lot of what you're explaining could be summed up as trust and credibility, right? Like, how much does the person in front of you trust you that you're going to do a good job, that you're going to do what you say you're going to do? And what are the credibility signals that they can find to build that trust?
Yep.
And that's a huge part of the work that we do as a marketing agency. If someone comes to your website, we want trust and credibility signals all over place, right?
Yep.
Reviews, a high star rating, testimonials where we're putting in bold the things that we know are important to consumers. But I'm also hearing just basic integrity, right?
Yeah.
And a framework I like to think about as it relates to integrity is what I call the say-do ratio, which is out of 10 things you say you're going to do, showing up to a certain place at a specific time, following through with promises that you make to different people, what percentage of those do you actually follow through on?
Yeah.
Right. And if that say-do ratio is off, if you're saying you're going to do a lot of things that you don't end up following through on, and you know the do side of that is low, you're going to have a problem.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
What do you believe separates top performing pest control companies from the rest?
I'm going to say the ability to get out of your business on the day-to-day and actually work on the business. I think that's where, your top performers really start to grow and scale. As we talk to a lot of different companies throughout the nation, we just got back from a 2-week-long stint where we've been at, I think 6 different shows in the last 3.5 weeks, but we were 2 weeks gone straight. And you talk to a lot of good companies, and you talk to the small guys clear up to the large national companies. And I think that's where those small to medium-sized guys is when they can get out of the day-to-day and being so micromanaging and step back and get good people around them. That's when you see companies really start to scale, is that they can step back, they can put people in place that can do the job, and they can trust that they'll do it, and they can work on other things to get them where they need to go.
What do you think prevents solo operators from effectively crossing that chasm?
I'm going to say fear, because I think I was in that stage as well. The fear of, what is this going to take? I think as my father was there, even though he wasn't, and it was no detriment to him, but I think just the fact that he was in my presence, it kept me from making some decisions that I probably would have made if he wasn't there, because I was maybe worried about what he would think, And so I think a lot of times it's fear of the unknown, right? What is that going to look like? How much work is that really going to take me? And so I think sometimes, you just have to step through the fear. Sometimes you don't know what's on the other side until you step through it, and you just have to have the courage to step through it.
Yeah. And would you say that it's fear for you, it sounds like it was fear of getting it right in front of your dad, right? So I would imagine for most people who are not necessarily in a situation where they're having to take over the family business, right? Maybe they've just gone out on their own as a technician. It's fear of them failing as a leader, because if you start hiring people and you're responsible for people, I just said it, you are responsible for people. There is a responsibility there that you now have to make sure that say-do ratio is high, and that you are going to lead the charge in making sure that the business is sustainable, that it's growing. Because people who come to work for you, especially if you're hiring good people, if you're finding good talent, they're not going to want to come work for you if they don't believe the company is headed in a positive direction, one where they can flourish. And so self-efficacy is a term I use a lot, and I focus on a lot for myself, right? Do you believe that you can actually accomplish what you say, what you think you want to accomplish? And if you have low self-efficacy, that's certainly going to hold you back, right? And then also, like you said earlier, fear of, are the people I'm going to hire going to do a good job? What I often hear from pest control operators is it's hard to find good people. I hear that over and over and over and over again. But maybe part of that is about leadership and about your ability to choose the right people,
or attract the right people.
And then inspire them to be the best version of themselves when they're a part of your organization, right? So I'm not saying that there aren't employees out there who you don't need to hire everyone, but
Right.
attracting the right people, inspiring the right people to come be a part of your mission. And then once they're there, really like continuing to encourage them, and to give them things, to give them goals, and then hold them accountable to those things. So I think leadership is a very underappreciated skill, and this is not just in pest control. I've noticed this across small businesses in general. Right. What have you done to kind of hone your leadership skills?
I think you have to care, right? You really have to care about your people. Luckily, I was fortunate to have good people, and they stayed with me for a long time. I would say, even after I've sold my pest control business, I still get interaction with those people. They're still texting me here and there, asking me what's going on, or just wanting to know about life and catching up and this and that. And so I think it's important that you care about your employees. You take interest in what they're doing. I know, one of my employees had a daughter that was leaving on a church mission. They had what they call like a farewell for her, and it was a meeting where she spoke and I said, when is it? And I showed up, and this was probably early on. Like, he may have only been with me for a year or two, and it was an hour out of my time on a Sunday afternoon, and I was able to go, and that I would probably say, if I asked him, that made his world, in the sense that I would come and do that. And so for him, it was, like I say, it was an hour of my time, but it created a loyal employee for a lifetime. And so it's just taking a little bit of time, understanding. I was talking with someone just the other day who was talking about, there was a change in the CEO of this company, and they were talking about the differences. And one of the things they said is the previous CEO, he was so passionate about knowing who his employees were. And it was a large company with multiple, employees, and he knew the ins and outs of, kids and wives and things that were going on in their lives. And that makes you feel special. We all feel, different when someone takes the time to care about us. And so I think that's a huge one, as far as really, caring and genuinely wanting to know, what's going on in their lives. And as you do that, you build that loyalty, you build that trust, and they want to, power on for you.
Yeah. I'll offer a couple of tips. Coming from a place of curiosity is most important, right? That's just being a heart-led leader, someone who, like you said, really cares, because then it's going to come out naturally. To get tactical, though, for our listeners, something that we do, we have a weekly meeting with our core kind of leadership team, and we typically start the meeting after we get through updates with an icebreaker. And that icebreaker can be funny. That icebreaker can be deep, a layer deeper and a little more meaningful, and require a little bit more vulnerability. And since we do that week in and week out, and we record our meetings, we have notes on our meetings, at the end of the year, I've had, give or take, 50 opportunities to do that with each team member. I can take all those notes, I can put it in a spreadsheet, and now I've got a journal of all these different things that I've learned about everyone on the team. And to take it a step further, we even have fun with it. We have our quarterly business reviews with that same team, and I will, as an icebreaker, I'll say, I asked this question, who responded in this way, right? So that's kind of a fun way to then go back and remember the things that we learned about each other. And
it's great follow-up for you, right? It's great follow-up so that they feel like, oh, wow, outside of our meeting, he actually took time to remember what those things were.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Exactly. So I think there's a lot of power, and because I frankly probably even thought of that because I don't have the best memory, and that's come back to bite me in the past. So I've just had to learn the hard way, the importance of making sure that I'm taking good notes, either mentally and then immediately after a conversation, writing things down, or typing them out somewhere. But I love what you said about, just caring, because a lot is going to come from just that. My last question for you, speaking of leadership and lessons learned, what books podcasts or resources have shaped your approach to business?
Interesting. So I would say I'm not a huge reader. I have read a few books, but I am one of those guys that, I enjoy the conferences and things like that. So, getting involved in your association, rubbing shoulders with other people who are doing the same thing as you, that's where you're going to learn real, in the trenches, things that you can do to your business. One example, I met with a guy who I hadn't done price increases forever because I was scared my customers were going to leave me and this and that and all the fears that come with that. And he said, "Oh, we just do them automatic every 2 years." And I was like, "Really? Every 2 years?" And he says, "Yeah." And I said, "Gosh, do you lose any customers?" And he was like, "No." He's like, "If you do lose one, it's usually one you don't want." And anyway, he talked me into, all right, you need to start doing it and just make it normal. So I was like, all right. So I remember going back, creating a thing that he helped me with and sending out an email explaining it all. And I remember like the button, pushing the button that says, "Okay, it's done. Like, we're doing this. You can't go back." And I remember pushing the button and just being like, I pushed the button and it was like, oh, like I'm scared. Like, what's going to happen, right? 2 weeks went by and we never had any calls. Nobody. In fact, we had a couple people call and say, "I was wondering when you guys were going to, give us a price increase, And you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I waited this long. And from then on, we just every 2 years, that's what we did. And it was hurting the business because of my fear of doing it. But all it took was a good friend, mentor that I was able to kind of work with that said, "Hey, you need to do this and I'm going to hold you accountable for it." And so those, peer groups, things like that, those are things that have always been huge for me, is getting involved in the association, getting in with a peer group, some kind of a mastermind. I will say E-Myth has always been my favorite business book, by far. I think it paved the way, from the beginning. The Millionaire Next Door was a book that like set me off, early on in college when I read it, that kind of set me on a really good path. And so, there's a couple there that I love and are oldies but goodies. But really, it's like I say, it's the rubbing shoulders with other guys who are in the trenches with you and doing the same things, and the fact that you can learn from their mistakes, not have to do them yourself, and vice versa. I'm sure there's been things that I've been able to, push and give to them that they've been able to take back to their businesses. And so there's a give and take there where in this industry, I can't say enough how great this industry is. When, most people say they didn't intend, and I didn't intend to get into pest control. That wasn't my goal, is going to college. But once you get in, you can't get out. And it's just because the people in this industry are awesome. It's just so fun as you get to know more and more of them. They're just good people. It's a good business. It's good work. It's enjoyable. There's just a lot of good that comes from it.
Absolutely. And is there anything else you want to leave with our listeners, as it relates to what you're up to or Smarter to Launch?
Yeah, I mean, we're chugging along, having some great success with a lot of different companies out there, from, one-man shows clear up to national companies that are using our product and seeing great things from it. We've got, we continue to evolve, and we're making great headway with a lot of the CRMs as far as the customer management tools that companies are using for the routing and scheduling of that, and creating some really good partnerships there. And we've got some of the greatest people in the industry, working in this industry and that. And so, yeah, come, check us out and give us a try. And I promise you, we'll go to bat for you. And we want to help companies succeed in whatever way we can. And so myself and my partners, we're all the same. We're kind of cut from the same cloth, where we just want to help people out there, reach their dreams with their businesses.
Awesome. Cody, this has been incredibly valuable and insightful. I appreciate you taking the time to have this chat with me. Maybe we'll see you again here sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.